Hello everybody. Hello everybody and welcome back to Flock Talk. Today we are going to be doing another episode of Wiki Reviews, today on how to teach a parrot to talk. Parakeets, also known as budgies, are very popular pets because they are easy to care for and are smart and inquisitive birds. If you want to bond with a parakeet and keep it stimulated and happy, you can even teach it to talk. Parakeets are great mimics that love to speak in the language of their flock, whether that flock consists of other birds or humans like you. This is just a pet peeve of mine, but a budgie and a parakeet aren't the same thing. A parakeet is a very general term for basically the length of a parrot's tail. It's usually a ratio of the body to the length of the tail. There's a ringneck parakeet, there's the budgerigar, which is a type of parakeet. Parakeet is just a broad spectrum category, kind of like conure. It's very vague, and I don't know, it's just a general pet peeve of mine. Just thought I'd get that out of the way because I'm sure I'm going to be seeing it a lot in this article. And yes, this one is specifically directed towards teaching budgies to talk, which seems to be a common misconception that people don't think budgies can talk. A budgie actually holds the world record for the most amount of words spoken. I don't know if it still holds the world record, but I know at one point it did. And they had just an absurd amount of words and phrases that this bird knew. So budgies absolutely can talk. They're some of the most chattiest birds out there. It's just kind of a matter of harnessing that energy and focusing them to learning new words. Have a limited number of parakeets. Parakeets can develop their ability to make noise by talking to other birds. So having a few birds can help both of them develop a variety of their chirping. However, having too many birds will focus all of their communication on other birds instead of on communicating with you. This is not necessarily true. If you dedicate the time to focusing on them and reinforcing when they're chirping back at you and encouraging those vocalizations with you, you don't have to limit their interaction with other birds in order to be able to achieve that. If you understand how to reinforce them properly and how to encourage that behavior, you don't have to limit other stimuli to be able to get that result. If you only have one parakeet, trick it into thinking it has a friend by placing a mirror in its cage. This will help it develop and practice chirping. However, you should take the mirror out of its cage before you start teaching it how to talk, so that way a bird focuses its attention on you. I wouldn't do this. Mirrors have a really bad track record with causing a lot of issues with parrots, causing them to become super obsessive with them, to get territorial, to get really hormonal. There's no reason to give a bird of any variety a mirror. It's going to cause a lot of problems, especially if all you're trying to do is teach them to talk. Why would you put them through all of that mental stress just to achieve this goal? It's not necessary. I wouldn't put a mirror in there. Make your parakeet comfortable with you. Make friends with your bird by spending time with it, speaking to it, and keeping it nice and comfy in your home. Basically treat a parakeet like it is a part of your family, because it is. Well, yeah, of course, before you can teach your bird to talk, you do need to have trust. You need to have basic foundations of training there. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get too far because your bird's scared of you. So that's pretty much a given. Pick the right time to train your parakeet. Make sure that the bird is calm and ready to focus its attention on you. If the bird is tired or distracted, it won't be easy to train. A good time to train your bird is first thing in the morning. You can even start repeating words for your bird before uncovering its cage at the start of the day. Yes and no. So the timing for teaching a bird to talk is more dependent on the energy than it is the distraction level of the environment. When it comes to repeating words, birds will generally repeat whatever is most exciting and interesting at that point in time. So uncovering the cage and saying a word is absolutely a beautiful time to do it, because the bird should be really excited that the day is starting, really excited that you're opening the cage, super excited to see you there. So if every time you open that cage door or you lifted up the blanket on the top of the cage, you said hi there, the bird would probably eventually start saying hi there in anticipation or just mimicking that tone. It's the reason why Newt actually knows how to say hi sir, because every time I'd open the door or he'd fly to land on me, I would say hi sir, and it was a very exciting moment, so he started to repeat that word. Repeat one word to your bird over and over. Speak it clearly and slowly, teaching them only one word at a time. Your parakeet may not know how to repeat the word right away, but just keep repeating it. So, yes and no. If you just stand there and say, hi, 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 it's boring. It's super monotone. It's not fun. It's not interesting. Your bird's going to lose interest like that, and they're going to walk away. If you want the bird to actually repeat what you're saying, just say it like you're excited, say it 2-3 times and leave it there. You know, if they happen to try and make a vocalization while you're saying those things, give them a treat, reward them for making an effort to make a vocalization. They will gradually start to kind of morph it into what you're saying. You just kind of make it excited, make it happy. Don't just stand there for 10 minutes straight repeating the same word in a monotone voice. You generally just want to associate the words with really exciting, kind of valuable moments for them. Parakeets are best with consonants D, T, K, P, or B. A simple phrase like hi, how are you won't help because it will be hard for the bird to say. So absolutely think about the sounds that your bird naturally makes and what those words kind of sound like. Budgies in particular are kind of chattery. They make a lot of kind of low clicky noises and those pitches. So it'll be a lot easier for them to say words that are similar in those pitches and those click noises than it will be for them to say other noises. So that is absolutely something to take into account, and I'm glad they've included that in here. Reward your parakeet if he or she says the word you're teaching it. This will reinforce the behavior and also help to further the bond between you and your bird. Parakeets love millet sprays, celery, and carrots are also great treats, and they provide essential nutrients for your budgie's health. It's kind of odd that they recommend using vegetables. If your bird happens to really love vegetables, absolutely use them as a treat. But your budgie's probably more likely to appreciate a seed-based treat or a little bit of a fattier, like sunflower seed or a nut or something, than they are a healthy vegetable. However, if your bird is that one bird that loves vegetables, go for it. But in terms of recommending a reward, I would stick to the millet spray and the seeds and the exciting tones more than I would a vegetable. I just haven't met that many budgies that go head over heels over a carrot. But you know, if that's what your bird loves best, all the power to you. Another important thing to note here is they said only to reward your bird if it says the word that you're trying to teach it. Reward any attempt at vocalizing, because you want your bird to kind of catch on to what you're trying to do here. And if you do every session just saying the word and you ignore everything the bird tries to do to earn the reward here, they're gonna give up and just kind of decide that you talking is pointless. Whereas if you say an exciting word and the bird makes a chirp, you give it a treat, they're going to start to realize that making vocalizations when you are vocalizing is what's earning them rewards, and they're going to start experimenting with that, and you can start reducing the amount of words that you're giving and only rewarding ones that sound closer to what you're saying, and that would be the better, more precise way to get to your end goal a little faster. Speak to your bird for a few minutes at a time. However, don't try to train it for too long in one session. It's a good idea to work with your parakeet for about half an hour a day. If you try to work with it for too long, the bird may get bored and could become less willing to learn. So this is right. You don't want to overtrain your bird, have them be tired and exhausted when you end, or have them be really bored when you're saying that word, because they're just not going to want to say it. However, half an hour is a really long time. They did say in a day, so I don't know if they mean that broken up. When it comes to working on speaking and using a word, I would only do like 2 minutes, maybe 3 at most. Because if you're just sitting there saying the same word over and over again, if I just stood here and did a 3-minute video of me saying one word, you would shut that off in about 10 seconds. Because it's pointless, it's boring, there's nothing fun to it. If you're gonna have a session that's just focused on teaching them words, I would have the sessions even shorter than that, unless you can make it so overly exciting that they want to be engaged in you speaking for longer. I really wouldn't push it to half an hour in length. That's a little excessive. Maybe do 1 minute in the morning, a minute a couple hours later, things like that. Just that was kind of sporadic and fun and doesn't last very long. They'll be a lot more excited for it that way. Don't let the bird get distracted during lessons. Keep it focused by covering 3 sides of the bird's cage with a cloth. Stand right in front of the cage when talking to your bird so it knows that you are speaking to it. Yet you don't want the bird to get distracted because you do want them to be focused on the training and trying to figure out what's going on. I wouldn't say that covering 3 sides of the cage is totally necessary. That could be helpful if you're in a really chaotic household and there's no way for you to possibly calm things down. But generally, if you're having a training session, you're already in kind of a quiet room. You don't need to cover their cage and isolate it so all they can see is you and nothing else. That's a little bit unnecessary, and it just kind of restricts their ability to show you that they don't want to be here. If they're losing interest, you need to kind of let them lose interest and just let it go, and then revamp your training session next time, figure out how you could keep their attention some more. Standing right in front of them so they know that you're speaking to it. Your bird knows when you're speaking to them. If you're happy and excited and you're looking at them and you're like, hey, look at me, you'll be really exciting and engaging, and they'll want to repeat what you're saying and they'll want to be engaged with you. If you're standing square in front of them and all they can see is you and you're saying the same monotone thing over and over, it doesn't matter if the only thing in front of them is you. It will be boring, they will lose interest. Standing right in front of them, sure, it could help in a little bit of clarity, but I just would make sure that you're not just isolating everything else that's going on so the bird has no choice but to sit there and stare at you and be bored. I would rather take the time to engage them, create that motivation to be there, and take that route instead. Keep each lesson focused. Don't move on to a second word until your parakeet can say the first phrase correctly, at least 3 times in a row. Make sure that your parakeet really knows a word before moving on. It will make it more likely that it will repeat the same word or phrase at a later time. I would go for more than 3 times. If you want to get a word that's triggered on cue, you generally want them to be able to do something at least 50 times reliably before you can 100% say that that behavior has been brought under stimulus control. Otherwise, the bird just kind of said it a couple times and then it's done. It's same with any behavior that you teach them. Words in particular can get mumbled and jumbled quite easily. That's why you'll get a lot of birds that say bits of words of different phrases and mash them together, or don't quite say complete words. Because if you don't take the time to make sure they understand start to finish what you want, they'll kind of make up in between and kind of fake it, because they don't have a full clarity of what you really want from them. Be patient. Do not try to force your parakeet to talk. Many parakeets will never learn to talk, but it is fun to try. Absolutely, training is always about having fun, having a good time. Yes, you have an end goal, but really, does your bird need to learn to talk? Is it essential to their health to learn to talk? No, it's not. You can absolutely have fun with it, but don't get so frustrated and worked up that it's not happening that you start being mean to your bird or getting really unnecessarily angry. Training should always be for the fun of it, not for getting upset and frustrated when things aren't working out. Move on to more complicated words or phrases. Once your parakeet has mastered a few words, you can move on to full phrases. Just as with teaching it words, repeat the phrase to your parakeet when it is calm and willing to focus on you. The parakeet will be focused if you are in one room, but others can cause your parakeet to be frightened. So yeah, I would move on to making sure that the behavior is really solidified first. So say the word in the one room that the bird knows it really well in, and then move into another room, make sure it can still do the behavior. It's really difficult to generalize things because yes, the bird knows how to say the word when it's on one perch in one room. Doesn't mean they understand how to say the word when someone else is present, when the perch is in a different room, when they're sitting on you versus a perch. There's all sorts of different variables that you kind of have to teach them to understand that the behavior is still viable in. So I would do that and make sure that is solid before moving on to other things. Otherwise, you're going to have a behavior that isn't totally known and they can only do it in one specific circumstance. But otherwise, yes, you obviously want to move on to slightly more complicated things. Don't go from saying hello to moving all the way up to asking a full-fledged question. Get your parakeet to name an object or an object's color. As you say a word, hold the object up. With enough practice, you should be able to just hold up the object and the parakeet will repeat the word you taught it. It will simply be repeating the sounds you made, but it will appear as if they can actually identify the object. So yeah, that's absolutely a fun thing to do with teaching them to speak, is to teach them to identify things. Same with getting them to fetch things by name. The way they describe the process is slightly incorrect, and if I were to tweak it, you would present the object at the same time as saying the word. Bird repeats the word, they get a treat. Then you would present the object first, and then you would say the word, and then they would say the word. And you keep doing that with like microseconds in between when you've presented the object, you've said the word, and then they've said the word. Because what's happening is the bird's gonna start understanding that the object being presented causes you to ask them to say the word and them to say the word. So they're gonna start anticipating that when the ball or the object goes up, they're supposed to be saying the word, and then you can phase out you having to say the word at all. So that would just be the minor detail there, is you want to start saying the word at the same time and then present it beforehand. Otherwise, it's just harder for them to associate the two things together. And it's very important that the object is coming just a second before when you start transitioning. Otherwise, again, there's so much time between the object and you speaking that they can just disregard it altogether. So you start with the object at the same time as your trigger word, then the object, your trigger word, and them speaking, and then add more time in between until you don't need to say the word anymore. So that was it. That was a pretty short article, and it wasn't too bad. The main thing with teaching a parrot to talk is that it is fun and engaging. There are a lot of things that will tell you just to leave a recording playing 24/7 and your bird will eventually pick it up. they 9 times out of 10 just don't work because the birds don't find the words interesting, they get really bored by it. It'll just become background noise and it'll mean nothing to them. If you can make your speaking engaging, if you can make it fun, have it be associated with when you open the cage, associate it with when you get home or when you give them food and things like that, they'll be much more likely to pick up those words a lot faster. That's why words that most birds pick up on first are things like their name or people coming in the door and saying hello, or they'll pick up on swear words because they are said in very elevated, high energy moments that are very enticing and interesting to birds. So the energy and the emotions associated with that at the time of the word being said tends to be more important than the amount of times you say the word. But that will do it for today's video. This wasn't too bad of a WikiHow article. It's definitely one of the more accurate ones they've got for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.